Good morning, everybody. There are thousands upon thousands of hyper-local climate action networks and associated organisations around the UK driving the climate emergency agenda at a local level as well as at a national level and a global level. Now, I talk a lot about cultural Marxism, and one of the things I speak about is the long march through the institutions where people who want to introduce cultural Marxist ideologies have taken over and infiltrated and corrupted the principles, the values of educational establishments, political parties, the mainstream media, businesses, and even the church these days. But a similar thing has happened with the whole concept of climate ideology, which is sort of like runs parallel to cultural Marxism because it is a direct attack on the economy rather than society and culture, which is what cultural Marxism is. The people at the top of the global pyramid, the movers and shakers in the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, obviously are driving the climate agenda at a global level, but it's being implemented at a local level, even a hyper-local level, right down to individual parish councils and schools and churches and so on. Now, obviously, with the Heritage Party, we now have the advantage of having 5 councillors at town and parish level. And one of our councillors in Bearsted in Kent, I thank you for that, has told me that what is going on in the small village of Bearsted is that there is something called a Bearsted Climate Action Network that has been set up, and it seems to be linked to the local church, which is called the Holy Cross Church, because they seem to be hosting a page for the Climate Action Network on their church's website. I'll put a link to it below. You can see what it says there. It says, I'm just going to read from the introduction, Bearsted Climate Action Network is about bringing together like-minded people from Bearsted and the surrounding area who want to work together to face the climate and ecological emergency. I'll skip a sentence. Then it says, the climate and ecological emergency is a huge challenge in every aspect of our society, and it's happening right now. So immediately they're telling you that they think that there is a climate emergency. Well, they're not presenting it in terms of what they think. They're presenting it in terms of something that is a fact, that is actually happening. But if you look at the science of it, it's all based on fear around carbon dioxide levels. And carbon dioxide is not a harmful gas. It is a natural gas that is part of the environment anyway, and plants like carbon dioxide. And actually, carbon dioxide levels are elevated in horticulture inside greenhouses in order to make plants grow faster and to produce bigger and juicier fruits and vegetables. So that's what carbon dioxide does. But there's an awful lot of fear around it coming from UN organizations and so on, and propaganda about it. Now, let's just go down a little bit in this page, and I'll read another couple of paragraphs from it. It says, according to the UN's Food and Agricultural Organization, around 14% of all emissions come from meat and dairy production. Reducing our intake of these two foods can make a big impact. So they're encouraging people to give up eating meat or to eat less meat, and along with that would be less dairy products and less eggs and so on, which is one of the action points which is coming from the World Economic Forum. You will own nothing and be happy, but you will not be eating much meat. You will be eating meat will be a rare treat rather than a daily staple, it said in the very same video as the you will own nothing and be happy video. So obviously the people involved in this climate emergency propaganda are agitating for there to be less meat around. It also says the action plans, what they're going to do to campaign for change by influencing central government for more urgent action and to be the UK climate leader. So they're going to be, I suppose, responding to consultations, government consultations about climate, writing to the ministers to keep on at them to achieve net zero by 2050 and go through with all of the things that they said they're going to do to reduce carbon dioxide. It also says there a more local thing, by influencing local government to urgently tackle car dependency, encouraging action on the integrated transport strategy in Maidstone and Bearsted there in Kent. So they're going to be trying to influence the local council, the local councillors, to reduce car use somehow. So when I was on the London Assembly, there was a lot of talk about active travel and also low traffic neighbourhoods, and which has then led into 15-minute cities that we're seeing starting to be implemented today in places like Oxford and so on. What they want to do with active travel is get everybody walking and cycling, or using public transport, if you're lucky enough to have public transport near you. But they want to discourage you from having a private car or using a private car by putting road blockages in all over the place. So it makes it much more difficult and more expensive to use a car. Now, this doesn't actually reduce carbon dioxide, actually increases carbon dioxide emissions, because people still need to use their cars. I mean, tradesmen, business people, carers, parents, police, ambulances, fire engines, they still need to travel. But they take longer. The journeys take longer because there's all these road blockages everywhere, so they can't go from A to B quickly. They need to go to A to B via C, D, and E to get round the road blockages. So they produce more carbon dioxide, and there's more congestion, so there's more idling, which increases carbon dioxide emissions. And it has the opposite effect of what people say that low traffic neighbourhoods are going to have on carbon dioxide emissions. This has been proven by data and statistics now. But the climate emergency lobby still want to implement these things and discourage car use in whatever way they want to do it. So this is a hyper-local group that is just active in campaigning to their parish council and town council and district council, I imagine, as well, to implement climate emergency policies based on the net zero ideology now and in the future. This is just one of them, and I'm aware of this because our councillor Sean Turner in Bearsted has told me about it, and given me the link to the website, and is there for you to see. So it's public for everybody to have a look at. This is happening all over the country. Now, just randomly, I typed in Climate Action Network, and a lot of results came up. Mostly you've got Facebook pages and so on. Some of them have got websites. But there's another one here that came up, and this is in Worthing, which is a town of about 100,000 people near Brighton on the Sussex coast. And there's something called Worthing Climate Action. It's got a Facebook page. I'll put a link to it there. And they recently had a conference in Worthing Town Hall. Now, I tried to have a Heritage Party conference in a town hall. I wasn't allowed in. They wouldn't let me have a conference because they don't want a political party in a town hall or a public building. But this is political. Climate action or whatever is political, but they're allowed in. I'm not allowed in, but they are. But because they say that they're apolitical because they've got all of the political parties to sign up to it. The Tories, fake Conservatives, the Labour, Lib Dem, Greens, SNP are all signed up to this climate emergency idea and the net zero policies and the Paris Climate Agreement and so on. But they had there, this was organised with Worthing Climate Action in conjunction with the Climate Resilience Centre Worthing, Green Tides, Ada and Worthing, Green Spaces Partnership, Transition Town, Worthing, CIC, and Community Work. So you've got 5 hyperlocal NGOs or organizations working together to push the climate ideology onto councillors. There were councillors there to influence councillors, to influence what the local town council or borough council, in the case of Worthing, will be doing about climate and introducing policies which are aligned with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2030, and so on. This is just one town here, 5 NGOs acting just in one town. So this is being replicated all over the country. And I know from other councillors that we have in the Heritage Party, other people who are candidates who are very active in local areas are telling me that they're seeing similar things happening with local, hyperlocal NGOs pushing this agenda and influencing councils. And this is what's being done. This is a deliberate strategy which is called global to local. So you've got the people at the top of the tree pushing Agenda 2030, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, at the, in the UN, in the World Economic Forum, having their nice global conferences. But then you've got people in the grassroots, if you like, in villages and towns, setting up NGOs to push this. And the thing is, what this does then is you have tens of thousands of hyperlocal NGOs, and they all respond to a consultation about climate, and they all have official sounding names. And so whenever the government has a consultation about doing something, implementing, for example, these building regulations they want to bring in, energy regulations, so that if you own a building, you're going to have to make it climate resilient and do all of this kind of insulation and have a smart meter and all of this stuff. All of these like climate action groups will then write to the government and respond to the consultation, and the government says, oh look, we've got 10,000 or so official sounding groups from all over the country telling us that they want us to do this. But you see, this is a circular system we've got. The government introduces a policy, a white paper or something. The NGOs that have been set up respond to it positively, say, yes, please do. Lock us down more, give us more regulation, make us use less fossil fuels, make us eat less meat and more soy, whatever. And they respond to it, and the government says, oh, well, look, we got all these people all over the country have responded to us, and they like the idea, they agree with the climate emergency, so then they use this as evidence that people or groups are in favour of more climate policies and more steps toward net zero and getting rid of fossil fuels and so on, and changing to wind and solar, which is not going to provide us enough energy for everybody to heat their homes in the future if we do this. Absolute madness. But you see, this is the circular system that has been set up to advance the agenda. It's very important that we are aware of this, and you will have all of these hyper-local organizations set up already in your area. You can look for it. I mean, just type in your town, your district, and the word climate, and you'll probably see a load of Facebook pages or even websites or whatever posts about what people are doing to try and influence your local council, even down to parish council level, to go along with net zero policies and the climate agenda. The only way to combat this is to get in councillors in at every level that are going to be sensible and are not going to implement net zero nonsense, who are not going to implement 15-minute cities or low traffic neighbourhoods or go into schools and change the diet in schools and in their canteens. This is happening in some places. I can't remember which council it was, or one of them has actually said they're not going to serve meat anymore at their canteen and so on, and even in schools. And now people are actually now suggesting that school dinners should be meatless, should be vegetables only. So the poor kids in these schools are not going to get any protein from meat. They will just be eating maybe this frankenfood, which they want everybody to eat, created in a factory and so on, from soy and insects. And if you don't want your kids to be eating soy and insects ultimately, and you want your kids to be to go on having a decent diet, which includes meat and dairy products and high quality protein from animals, then you need to stand up against this, because this is coming just as surely as 15-minute cities have come after low traffic neighborhoods and after wind turbines and solar panels that we've got. This is the next stage on the agenda, and they're very open and explicit about this, that they believe that eating meat is harmful to the climate, so they want to get rid of it. All nonsense, of course, but this is the fabricated ideology. We need to get people standing for elections, and you need to get involved in politics. This is the time. The Heritage Party is the only party that understands this, that is viable, and we will be standing in as many local elections as we possibly can from now on. Well, obviously, we stood 65 candidates last year, which was a great achievement considering it was only our third year of standing candidates in elections. We want to stand more this year wherever local elections are. So please do put yourself forward to stand for local elections in your districts and boroughs, and even in your towns and parishes where you live, so that we will have councillors on there that make the decisions. And at the end of the day, you can have all the NGOs that you want, but if we have our councillors in there that are not going to be beholden to the climate ideology, that are just going to be common sense councillors, that are not going to block the roads off, who are not going to deny kids meat in schools, who are not going to make life difficult for people who just want to live normally and go about their business and change their lifestyles for the WEF's ideology, then we need people in the councils to do that. So however many NGOs you have, if we have our councillors in there making the decisions, it doesn't matter what the NGOs say, we can decide and we can make the decisions to keep the roads open and just to run our towns and cities and districts and boroughs with common sense. And of course that also applies to the national government as well, and there'll be a general election next year, and we need people to win seats in Westminster in order to overturn the nonsense of climate alarmism. It's going to be difficult, obviously, with the first past the post system, but we'll do whatever we can to stand as many candidates as we possibly can all over the country to fight this nonsense. So this is just a video to make you aware that, you hear about the climate nonsense on television stations on a national level, but there is a huge action going on at the local level, and this is by design, to infiltrate local civic society organizations, but also to set up new ones in order to push the agenda. This is happening, and it's happening where you live. So be aware of it. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself living in a place with a 15-minute city. If you don't want that, please do come and join me in the Heritage Party to fight against it. Put yourself forward to stand as a candidate next year. Thanks, everybody, for listening. God bless you all.